Okay, today we're going to be learning Sefer Yeshua, 15th parak. Apologize that my voice isn't 100%. And the beginning is relatively straightforward with the Pesukim. But we're going to see things are going to get very interesting on an episode with Achsa. 13 Pesukim in around. Pasuk says, Vayhi Hagorel Vayhi Hagorel was a sort of lot. L'mateh b'nei Yehuda l'mishpachosim, for the people of Yehuda, for their families. Al Gavul Edom Midbar Sin Negba, to the border of Edom, from the desert of Sin southernward, southward rather. Meketze Teman, from the southernmost edge. By Hilahem Gavul, the Mitzudas David points out, before we continue, David points out, I'm going to highlight it. Mashachoku l'mishpachoisam, kisak ein shachoku l'kol mishpacha chelak levad, lo haytnu u'ravavim elu b'elu. We're going to discuss over here how everyone had their own land, each and every family, and they weren't mixed at all. Everyone had their own territory over here. Pasuk Beis, Vahilahem Gavul, and they had a border, Negev. They had a border that was south, Meketze Yam Melech. It was the southern border from the edge of the Dead Sea. Min Haloshon Hapona Negba, from the tip that faces south. V'yotza El Menegev Lamala Akravayim, and it went out to the south of a place called Lamala Akravayim, V'ovar Sina, and it passed to a place called Sin, Sina. V'olam Menegev, and it went to the south, the Kadesh Barnea, of Kadesh Barnea, V'ovar Chevron, and it passed a place called Chevron. Va'ala Hadara, and it went to Adara. Adar. Minasav Hakar Ka'a, and it circled Karka. Pasuk Dalid is just land distribution, straightforward. Va'over Atzmoina, it passed to Atzmoina, Yatzol Nachal Mitzrayim, and it went to the brook of Mitzrayim. Hayu Toitza Ois Hagavul, there were outlets of the border, Yama, to the west. Sorry, to the sea, rather. There were outlets of the border, they were to the sea. This is the southern border. Southern border. Ukavul Kedma Yamamelech. The eastern border was literally the salt sea of salt. Ad Ketze Yarden, until the end of the Jordan. Ukavul Lepeya Safoina, and the border that went to the edge of the tip, the border on the north side, Safoina. It stretched Meloshon Ayam, from the tip of the sea, Meketze Yarden, the end of the Jordan River. Va'allah HaGavul, and it went to the border of Beis Chagla, of Beis Chagla, v'over misafoin Beis Harava, and it passed from the north of the Beis Harava. V'Allah HaGavul, and the border went, Evan Boyan ben Reuven. It ascended to the stone of the Boyan, the son of Reuven. Straightforward land distribution. There's nothing to elaborate on over here. V'Allah HaGavul Dibra, and it went to the border of Dibra, Me'emak Achor, the Safaina, from the valley of Achor and northward. Poina el Gilgal, and it faced Gilgal, Asher Noichach Lamala Adumim, which was opposite a place called Mala Adumim. Asher Negev Lanachal, which is south. Nachal is literally a river. Some translate it as perhaps valley. Va'avar hagavul, and it passed the border, ayin shamish, until the waters of Ein Shemish. Ein Shemish, not Ein Shemish, Ein Shemish. V'hayu toitza oisav el Ein Rogel. And the outlets were going to a place called Ein Rogel. Next pasuk continues and says, Va'allah hagavul Gai Bein Hinam, and it went to a border by the valley of a place called Bein Hinam. El Katif. Katif is literally to the shoulder. Hayabusi, the Yabusi area. Meneged Hi Yerushalayim, which is southern shoulder by the Yabusi, which is Yerushalayim. Allah Gavul Moshahar. The border went up to the top of the mountain, Asher al Pnei Gei Hinam, which is on the top of the mountain that faces the valley of Hinam. Yama on the west, Asher Bekitze Mikrafaim Safon, which is on the edge of Emek Raphaim, which is on the north. Sorry. Next pasuk continues. Okay. Pasuk good. Excuse me. Batar hagavul miroy shahar. The border curved from the top of the mountain, al ma'ayin, to the spring of Mi Iftayach. Till that spring, Mi Iftayach. Yotza el Orihar Ephraim, and it went out to the mountains of Ephraim. Batar hagavul, and the border curved. Bailahi Kriyas Yarim. It curved to a place called Bala, which is Kriyas Yarim. Pasuk Yud. Anasav Hagavul, and the border went around Mebaila, from this place called Baila, Yama. Yama means it went west. El Har Seir, to a place called Har Seir. Va'avar al Ketef Har Yarim, and it went to literally the shoulder of Har Yarim, to the flank of Har Yarim, the mountain of Yarim. Misafoina, from the north. He Kisalon, which is Kislon. V'yared Beis Shemesh v'avar Timon, and it went to Beis Shemesh and passed to Timon. V'yotza hagavul al Ketef Ikron, and the border went to the place called the shoulder of Ikron. Safoina to the north. V'tahar hagavul, and the border curved again. Shechiroina v'avar har habayla. It curved towards Shikroina, and it passed the mountain of Habayla. V'yotza Yavniel, and it went to Yavniel. V'hayu toitzois hagavul yam, on the outlets of the border. they went to the sea. Ugavul, Yam, and the border of the western part of the Great Sea, Yam HaGadol, Ugavul and its border. Zeh Gavul ben Yehuda, Saviv HaMishpachos. This is the border of the children of Yehuda, all around according to their families. So far, if you got through that, then you're ready for the next part, because that was the most boring. I'd like to give.
That's not boring.
No, that was the most boring you could get. I'd like to give a little introduction to the next 6 psukim, which are jam-packed, absolutely jam-packed. This over here, we're going to be learning about the episode of Aksa. Okay, Calev. First, we'll see the psukim inside, and then we'll speak everything out outside. We're not even going to give an introduction. We're just going to go through the psukim, and if we need to reference them again, then we'll do them again. This is a tremendous story over here. Pasuk says, "U'lekalev ben Yefuna nasin chelek b'soich b'nei Yisrael." Calev, the son of Yefuna. This is Calev. We already know him. Calev and Pinchas. Those were the 2 spies that were sent in to spy out the land of Israel, as we learned about earlier in the sefer. So Calev, the pasuk says, Calev was given over here in Yud Gimel, L'Calev ben Yefuna nasan chilek b'soich b'nei Yehuda el pi Hashem Yehoshua. He was given a portion in the land of Yehuda. Calev was given in accordance to that which Hashem told Yehoshua. What was Calev given? As Kiryas Arba Avi Ha'anak Chevron, a place called Kiryas Arba, who is named after the father of the Anak, which is the giant, which is commonly referred to as Chevron nowadays. We're going to see geographically if he actually received this portion or not, because it seems like it was already distributed. We'll come back to that. Let's just go through the 6 psukim first. Vayoresh Misham Calev Eshloisha Bnei Anak. Calev drove out from over there 3 of the children of the giants. Who were they? Eshishai ve'es Achimon ve'es Talmai Yelod Anak. He drove out Shisha, Achimon, and Talmai, the children of these giants. Vaya'al Misham El Yoshui Devir. And he went out from over there to the inhabitants of Devir. Okay? He ascended from there to the inhabitants of Devir. V'shem Devir lifnim kriya sefer. And the name of Devir previously is called Kriya Sefer, all familiar places in Israel nowadays. Vayomer Calev. Calev said, quote, Asher Yaka es Kriya Sefer ulakida. Whoever hits Kriya Sefer and conquers it, v'nasati lo es achsa biti leisha. I'm going to give my own daughter achsa. I'm going to give it to that person who conquers it as a wife. The obvious question is, this is all Calev cared about? Giving his daughter to a mighty warrior? Let's say he wasn't fitting. He didn't have Torah and mitzvahs. We'll come back to that. V'yilkada Osniel ben Kenaz, achi Calev. Furthermore, why couldn't Calev himself conquer it if he conquered bigger cities in the past, like we just learned? Come back to that. V'yilkada Osniel ben Kenaz, achi Calev. Who conquered the city? Someone by the name of Osniel, the son of Kenaz, who was the brother of Calev. Vayitin lo es achsa bito lisha. He gave Osniel Achsa, his daughter. What type of name is Achsa? We'll come back to that. As a wife. Vayhi beboya batisitehu lishol me'is avia. And it was when she came to him. Achsa came to Osniel, her now husband. Batisitehu. It's a tricky word over here. She urged him. It's an interesting word. She urged him. There's no even Mitzudas Ian on this. It's a Mitzudas David, though. And she urged him, Lishol me'es avia, ask from her father. Ask my father, Calev, Sada. Ask for a field. Batisnach malachamer. She descended from the donkey, also a rare word, interesting word. Batisnach actually is more like she slid off the donkey. Vayomer la Calev malach. And Calev said, well, what's going on over here? What are you asking me for? The Mitzudas David explains. What do I need to give you here? But Timer, and she said, Tana li beracha. She responded, give me a source of blessing over here. Ki eretz hanegev, because the land that you gave me, eretz hanegev, nasanani, nasatali gulas mayim. The land that you gave me is dry. It's no good. It's neguva. Eretz negev, neguva. Mitzudas David says it's dry. Give me, she said, springs of water. Vayitin la eis gulos alios veis gulos tachtios. And to that, Calev gave her the springs, upper and lower springs. That's the whole end of the episode. You see the little pay over here. That's the whole end of this episode. With Calev and with Achsa and with Osniel. It's a pretty cryptic story. What did she need more land for? She's being greedy over here. She asking her husband to ask, well, what's going on over here? Pretty cryptic story. Rashi comment. Yudalit. Yodesh Misham. She inherited over there. La'achar misas Yehoshua. It's talking about after the death of Yehoshua. Ki adayim b'mei. Okay. In other words, there's a whole argument. Question one: when did this story happen? We think it happened over here in this point in Sefer Yehoshua. It's not simple. According to Rashi, it's actually a Rashi that says. Let's see the Rashi inside first, and then we'll have more of a discussion on the other Mefarshim. Rashi says, "La'achar misas Yehoshua." This story transpired after Yeshua's death, not at this point in Yehoshua. Later on in the sefer, Ki adayin b'mei Yehoshua lo nilkado Chevron, because in the time of Yehoshua, Chevron wasn't conquered yet. As the pasuk says in the beginning of Shoftim, Parakal pasuk Chaf. The only reason why this episode is mentioned over here is because here we're talking about the land distribution. This is a tremendous insight from Rashi that this episode didn't actually occur here. Should be pointed out that others argue. If you look in the Radak and sefer Shoftim, in the first parak pasuk Yud, this story happened during Yeshua's lifetime. So you have a discussion in the Mefarshim, you have a major argument. When did this story actually occur? Kriya Sefer, Rabbanosenu Omnu, The rabbis tell us, Elu halachos shenishtachu b'mei avlo shel Moshe shehichshir Osniel ben Knaz milpapulo. These are the halachas that were forgotten during the mourning period of Moshe. Osniel ben Knaz returned the halachas with all of his pilpul. How do you translate pilpul in English?
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
Dissertation, back and forth.
With all of his back and forth, in-depth
And
analysis.
definitely.
We're going to open up that Gemara momentarily, but first, let's take a look at everything on the page of the Radak. Comes along and quotes this Chazal as well. Actually quotes a different idea. Amru Razal, the Gemara in Tamura says, Ki ochiv me'imo haya. Osniel, yes, he was Caleb's brother, but he was not a full brother. He was a brother from the mother. In English, we call this a half-brother. Because as we just saw in the Pesukim, Calev ben Yefuna, Calev is the son of Yefuna, and Osniel is the son of Knaz. So you have to be careful to make sure that you learn this Gemara in Tamura on Tez Zayin, which is quoted by the Mefarshim, including the Radak, that Osniel was not a full brother of Calev. He was a half brother from the mother. Can't be a full brother. The pasuk says, Calev ben Yefuna, Osniel ben Knaz. Important point from the Radak. The Mitzudas David says, Al pi Hashem roitza loimer lo ma'atzmo. Yehoshua didn't give this land to Calev on his own. This was a divine commandment. Kim al pi Hashem. Avi Anak, what does that mean? The father of the giant roitza loimer, Arba. He avi Anak, roitza loimer, hakodesh v'anachim. Arba, Kriyas Arba. He was the father of the giants, the greatest of the giants. The Boya, Pasuk Yirches said, Osniel came, next Pasuk says, when he came, she urged him to ask. When she came, this is Achsa. The Boya, Bebeis Baila, she came to her husband's house. She came to Osniel and told her husband, Hasita es Baila. She urged her husband, tried to convince her, ask my father for good land, good real estate. She slid from her donkey. She caused herself to fall from the donkey, to fall to the ground. Malach, the father asked, what are you lacking? That you want to ask me for it. Running out of time, we have to finish this. The Gemara in Tamura says, starts from over here, Tez Zayin Amud Aleph, starts Guf all the way up. But in short, the Gemara says, B'masnisin tona elef v'sheva meyos kolin v'chaburim v'gezeiros shavos v'diktuk kisoifrim nishkachu b'mei avul shamoisha. There were 1,700 Torah ideas that were forgotten, Kal v'chayimers, gezeiros shavos, etc. Forgotten during the days of mourning for Moshe. Amar Rabbi Avo, Afal Pikein, Hechziron Osniel ben Knaz metoich pelpulo. Osniel ben Knaz returned all those halachas, not because he read about it. It was all oral back then. He created it with all of his tremendous insight and in-depth analysis. The Gemara continues, V'lama nikra shmoy achsa. Why is she called achsa? Meloshan kas, anger perhaps. Shekol aroya oisel koyas al ishta. Whoever looked at her got angry at her wife. Why? According to Rashi, because she was so beautiful. People said, why can't my wife be as beautiful? We'll come back to exactly what that means. I'd like to share a few ideas over here. The simple explanation of this Gemara, of the Pesukim, is that Calev offered his daughter to anyone in marriage who would capture a place called Devir. The entire episode requires explanation. Come on. If you're a good warrior, you're gonna now Kalev's gonna give his daughter to a good warrior. Furthermore, if Calev was able to defeat Chevron, then he was certainly able to fight Devir, which is much smaller. Rather, based on this Gemara and Talmud, we could easily explain this cryptic episode. We already answered this question. This has nothing to do with being a physical warrior. This has to do with having the ability to delve into the true depth of Torah, the Torah which was forgotten, the 1,700 teachings that were forgotten during the time of Moshes' mourning. Calev alluded to these, and he wanted it restored. A scholar, a Talmid Chacham who was great enough to bring this forgotten Torah back to the Jewish people would be worthy to marry Calev's daughter. Calev's daughter, it's explained in the Lumad Lamed, many Svarim discusses, was a special woman who would be proud to be the wife of a man who had that degree of knowledge. Even though the actual teachings were forgotten, Osniel's wisdom was so profound that he was able to deduce them from the Torah that they remembered and the related laws that were still known. An obvious question is, why couldn't Yehoshua forget these forgotten teachings? Yehoshua is great, as we learned about the whole sefer Yehoshua. Why couldn't Yehoshua remember it? The Meom Loez explains, offers several answers to this question. And Pasuk Yud Ches. Osniel was able to learn Torah day and night in order to reconcile Pesukim and expound upon them. Osniel merited ruach hakodesh. Yehoshua, however, was a leader. He was more preoccupied with communal manners. Therefore, Yehoshua didn't have as much time as Osniel. Tremendous answer over here. Tremendous answer if we think about that, if we analyze that. I'd like to show that answer to everyone inside. Well, it's longer. You'll have to see it inside next time. Furthermore, as the story continues, Calev gave his daughter Achsa to be the wife of Osniel. She complained to her father, "He's not able to support me. He's occupied with learning Torah." Calev assured her, he said everything was going to be fine. Everything. Osniel ended up being the leader of the Jewish people. Another explanation is, Achsa realized she married a great and holy husband. He doesn't care about physical matters. He only cares about Torah. She was concerned. Now, by them getting married, they're gonna have kids. He's gonna need to work, be involved with other activities. It's gonna cause bittul Torah. Now he's not gonna be learning. Achsa was concerned she's gonna cause her husband to stop learning. She relayed this concern to her father, Calev, and requested a field that could support them. Calev responded, "Your concerns have no basis. Have more bitachon, have more amunah, have more faith in Hashem. Hashem will certainly supply a righteous person in the merit of his Torah and righteousness with his needs." This is what the Bear Moshe explains. You don't need to worry about it. We already saw the Gemara. She's called Achsa because anyone who looked at her got angry. As Rashi explained, she was so beautiful, whoever looked at her became upset at his wife for not being as gorgeous. Benjamin Eisenberger's Mesilas HaNeviim points out in the footnote over there on page 158, we see how important Shmiras Einayim is, guarding our eyes. Someone who looks at something inappropriate, that's in the Shalom Bayis, the peace in the house starts to decrease. You have to be very careful. Tosfos explains it was because of her modesty. She was incredibly modest. Tosfos in another place, not in Talmud. And whoever looked at her as a wife Said, why can't you be as modest as Achsa? The Meom Loez and Pasuk Tezayin explains, Achsa was very wise and righteous. Anyone who looked at her actions would get upset at his wife. Why can't you be as righteous, as wise? It's a very interesting Meom Loez on the Perek Tezvav. After Calev conquered Chevron, he wanted to conquer Devir, which was an adjacent city. Calev didn't want to leave enemies there, because those enemies could suddenly attack the Jews for no reason. Is that an incredible explanation or what? That
Say
literally,
it again. He wanted what?
he wanted Devir next to Chevron.
Yeah.
Why? Because he didn't want to leave the enemies right next to him because they could just attack the Jews for no reason.
Hmm.
He wanted to make a buffer zone. Is that incredible? That's exactly what happened with Gaza.
Ooh.
Not enough buffer zone, so to say. Incredible. You don't want to leave your enemies near you. Anyways, we did a lot outside on this. Thought maybe we would finish the parak, but next time we'll see more, all of this inside plus more, and then we'll finish the Pesukim after. This episode of Achsa, Osniel, Calev is fascinating. You know, you could have people that they learn this. To learn it properly, you really have to research it. I personally spent a good 3-4 hours on this parak, and I just summarized some of the main points, but it's incredibly insightful with a tremendous amount of wisdom and ideas that apply equally today as well. So, anyways. All right, so Mirza Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue.
Hashem.
The plan is we're going to start Hilchos Purim also the first simon, okay?
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
the Rav already sounds better at the end of the share.
Yeah, once you get into it, that's it.
Much better.
Shkoyach, shkoyach, shkoyach.
All right.
Well,
Also, when the
sorry.
heat shut off over here, I think that helped. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day.
Have a nice day.
Stay warm.